In the world of business, even the biggest giants can stumble. And right now, in the massive multi-billion-dollar war for your morning coffee, the undisputed king, well, they're under siege. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's just put it out there. Starbucks, the company that basically invented modern coffee culture as we know it, is in serious trouble. We're talking about a full-blown identity crisis. And the numbers? Oh, the numbers are starting to tell a really worrying story.
And here it is. This is the number that's got Wall Street completely spooked. A 2% drop in global sales. Now I know, that might not sound like a catastrophe, but for a titan like Starbucks, that's a huge flashing red light. It means customers are starting to vote with their feet.
Which leads to the big question, right? If people are turning away from Starbucks, where are they going? Who is this challenger that's managed to crack the code? And what do they have that the Coffee King seems to have lost?
To really get what's happening in this battle, we first have to understand why the champion is so vulnerable. See, for decades, Starbucks wasn't just selling coffee. They were selling something much bigger. They were selling the idea of the third place, that cozy, comfortable spot between home and work where you could just be. But the rise of mobile ordering and the nonstop drive-thru lines, it's completely twisted that idea. Now, walking into a Starbucks can feel less like a community coffee house and more like a chaotic, noisy factory churning out complicated, sugary drinks.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is what actual customers are saying online. It's all become about turn and burn, just pushing people through as fast as possible to hit the numbers. And that's come at the cost of the very experience that made them famous in the first place.
So what does that failure feel like when you're just trying to get a coffee? Well, it's those super long waits, even when you ordered ahead on the app. It's the app itself glitching out on you. It's that feeling that, the coffee just doesn't taste as good as it used to. The core promises of the brand are just fraying at the edges.
And right into this vacuum, this chaos, steps a challenger, a company that's perfectly designed for this exact moment. One that honestly couldn't care less about being a third place, because it's absolutely laser-focused on being the fastest place.
Everybody, meet Dutch Bros. Forget the quiet corners and acoustic guitar playlists. Think loud music, incredibly enthusiastic employees they call baristas, and a wild menu of customizable, high-energy drinks. It's basically a party in a drive-thru, and that authentic, high-vibe experience is something Gen Z absolutely eats up.
And their growth is just staggering. I mean, while Starbucks is slipping, Dutch Bros is on an absolute rocket ship. Just look at these numbers. Revenue's up 25%, sales at existing stores are growing like crazy, and yeah, investors have noticed the stock has almost doubled in the last year alone. So what we're really looking at here isn't just a simple fight over who sells more lattes. No, this is a fundamental clash between two totally different ways of thinking about what a coffee company should even be in the 21st century. And this chart just lays it all out, clear as day. Starbucks is still betting on these big, inviting cafes, that third place idea. Dutch Bros, they're all in on these tiny, super efficient drive-thru boxes. And you can see who's winning right now in that last row. Starbucks sales are down 4%, while Dutch Bros is up almost 7%. It's space versus speed. And speed is winning. This whole third place idea, it was the bedrock of Starbucks' entire global empire. It was truly brilliant for its time. But the real question now is that idea even relevant anymore in a world that seems to value convenience over everything else?
And this war isn't just being fought for customers, it's also being fought for the hearts and minds of the people making the drinks. A company's internal culture is basically its operating system, and here, the difference between these two is just as stark.
I mean, just look at this. It's unreal. 71% of Dutch Bros employees approve of their leadership. At Starbucks, it's just 34%. That's not a gap, my friends. That is a chasm, and it points to some really deep problems inside the coffee giant.
And when you dig in, you see why. Dutch Bros employees consistently rate their culture and their work-life balance way higher. Now, Starbucks might pay a little better, but it's constantly getting hit with complaints about understaffing, intense pressure, and of course, its very public, very rocky fight against unionization. It really seems like a great culture can be worth more than a bigger paycheck.
So the king is wounded. Sales are down, morale is in the tank. How do you fight back? Well, under its new CEO, Laxman Narasimhan, Starbucks is launching an absolutely massive counterattack. We're talking a $1 billion plan to try and save the company from itself.
They're calling it the triple-shot reinvention strategy. And the goal is pretty simple, at least on paper. Stop the bleeding,
fix the core customer experience. Basically, they want to make Starbucks feel like the Starbucks you used to love. But that is a monumental task.
The plan itself is incredibly ambitious. Narsimon is going right after those terrible wait times, trying to get drinks out in under 4 minutes. He's cutting down that ridiculously complex menu to help the baristas out, he's pouring money into remodeling the stores, and, this is a big one, adding more staff hours to ease the pressure on his people.
But all of those changes, as huge as they are honestly dwarfed by the single biggest strategic challenge the company has on its plate. It's a move that some might call a smart retreat, and others might call a surrender.
This number represents the enormous pressure Starbucks is under in China. They are in a brutal fight with local competitors like Luckin Coffee. And that battle in their second biggest market is forcing them to pour in billions of dollars, billions that are desperately needed to fix their problems back home in the US. It's a massive gamble. Can they really afford to fight a war on 2 fronts at once?
But here's the thing, will any of it actually work? A lot of people, including some of their own employees, are really skeptical. They see this triple-shot plan as just corporate marketing. You know, a shallow attempt to create warmth with things like mandatory handwritten notes on cups, which just feels forced, not genuine.
And that really brings us to the final billion-dollar question. Starbucks is trying to win the future by basically recreating its past. But in a world that's now run by speed, convenience, and culture-first brands like Dutch Bros, is looking backward really the right way to move forward? The war for your morning coffee is far, far from over.